Wednesday.
Hey everyone, happy Wednesday. I hope you guys enjoyed the interviews that we had, right? Tara was gone. She was traveling. How was that, by the way? I heard you had a protest you ran into.
Yes, in Amsterdam, actually, maybe it was their Independence Day or something. I'm not sure, but I noticed it at first with all the LGBTQ flags and everything that people were wearing as coats, I guess, because it was
Oh.
raining. And then I see these people handing out these big green signs with Trump's face on them, and the line through it, like anti-Trump signs. And as we're walking through, it was like in the center of the town. And as we're walking through, just more and more and more people, like thousands of people were coming off of the trains and all coming into the square. And my husband and I are just looking around like, what the fuck is going on? Like, do they really hate Trump that much? What is this about? Well, I guess it was a like pro-Palestinian protest.
Hmm.
I think that was like at the core of the whole thing. So it was like an anti-Israel, pro-Palestine thing. And because Trump is friends with some conservative leader in the Netherlands, that's why they had all the anti-Trump stuff there. But I just wanted to get out of there because I just like, I don't want to be around all these people.
Too
So
unhinged. You never know what's gonna
yeah, I'm like,
happen.
it is time to go. So we were actually on our way out when that happened anyway. But I looked it up later, and yeah, literally thousands of people showed up for this protest. And I swear, I know we talk about protests in Europe all the time, but this is probably like the fifth or sixth one that I have ended up in the middle of while traveling.
Yeah, I know. You've ran into a lot of them, and most of them weren't that most of them like anti-Trump or
Oh
anti,
yeah.
yeah.
They're all
Well,
it was anti-fascism is really their thing. And I just wanted to ask people like I want to know what your definition of fascism is. Like what
right.
do you believe fascism truly is? Because I think a lot of people just they were just holding these signs and as soon as they see like it just this division between pro-Palestinian and everybody else and it was just like the range of people there was crazy. And most of them were just there with like their LGBTQ umbrellas
Hmm.
and, the flags that they were wearing as jackets and just maybe something to do on a Saturday. I don't know. I really think a lot of people don't even know what they were protesting.
No, I think a lot of it is like a social thing, and I'll never look at protests the same again after we found out that these people are quite literally paid to protest and politicians and companies can organize these things. It's like, how can you ever trust anything anymore? It's all staged. It's all theater performance.
Yeah, and it was very clearly well coordinated because again, they were coming off like every train because we had to walk back towards the train station after we walked through it because that's where our hotel was. And you can just see as every train came in, more and more and more protesters came off the trains, and they were ready to go with their pre-made signs and everything else. So I agree with you. I have to think now every time I see a protest, who's paying for it?
Yeah, exactly. Especially when they all show up on time, like for a shift. Well, speaking of the whole LGBTQ community, something that happened while we were on our little break is it's now illegal in Colorado to misgender someone. And that just like floored me. So, if there is intentional or repeated misgendering and dead naming of transgender individuals in public schools, the workplace, or court, it is considered illegal. And my whole thing is okay, if you are wanting people to be more tolerant of the trans community and more accepting, threatening to arrest them for using the wrong pronouns is probably not going to win people over. But again, it's like keep going because that's why you're going to keep losing elections. I think it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, I read about this one actually. And I think California, Michigan, and Oregon all have very similar laws. but this one is by far the most extreme so far. And it's called the Kelly Loving Act. And not only does it apply to misgendering people in the context that you just described, but it also includes provisions that affect parental rights. And this is crazy because the bill states that if a parent doesn't affirm their child's gender identity, or even if they don't use their kid's preferred pronouns, it could be considered what they're calling coercive control. So if you have like a custody dispute, this could impact custody decisions. And it doesn't matter what age the kid is, it could be like a 5-year-old or a 15-year-old. So, what exactly is coercive control? Well, the legislation defines it as, quote, a pattern of threatening, humiliating, or intimidating actions used to harm, punish, or frighten an individual. This includes behaviors that strip away an individual's liberty or freedom, such as isolating them from support, exploiting them, depriving them of independence, and regulating their everyday behavior. And the bill also specifies that dead naming or misgendering a child falls under this definition. So let's just like bring up a random example, okay? Let's say you have a normal divorced dad and he has joint custody of his 12-year-old daughter. And she comes home from school one day and says she wants to be a boy and she wants to be called Jason instead of Andrea. And he's like, even if he says, like, look, I love you and I will always love you, but I'm not going to call you Jason. I think we need to go talk to a counselor and try to figure this out. And then Andrea doesn't like that answer and goes home and cries about her dad refusing to call her Jason to her left wing insane mother, right? Which was probably why they got a divorce in the first place. And then the crazy mom goes to family court and tells the judge that her ex-husband is engaging in coercive control by refusing to affirm their child's identity. Technically, the judge could use this legislation to say that the dad is causing psychological harm to the child, and he can suspend or revoke his parental rights and any shared custody, and also order him to attend gender sensitivity training.
Oh,
And
God.
meanwhile, the crazy mom could be encouraging the kid to transition without the dad's consent. And yes, I'm totally making this story up, but this is essentially what could happen with this new legislation.
Well, and when I hear coercive control and, like you said, exploitation of the child, to me, that's more the parents that are, you know, taking something the kids said, like they want to play with a doll or wear a dress, and saying, okay, we're going to go and give you hormones and
Mhm.
completely change your identity. That seems more like exploiting a child and coercive control than,
Right.
that example. But that's the upside down world we're living in, especially in these blue states. It's just absolutely wild. And then I could see too, now that this is a law, just imagine being a teacher in the schools that like isn't with this whole agenda. I could see kids just saying like, "Oh, she misgendered me," just so that,
Mhm.
they could get the teacher in trouble and they can get out of class or whatever. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
opening up a can of worms that is absolutely insane. It's like
Yeah, and
ignore
I'm
biology.
I'm so glad I don't have kids and that I currently don't work in this kind of environment because I would not be, I wouldn't do it. I'm sorry. You're my kid and you're 12, you're 7, and you want to tell me your name is a boy's name when you're not a boy? I'm not going to fucking indulge that behavior.
When your legal name is
Hmm.
something else, so we're supposed to ignore the legal name that's on your birth certificate and your, gender and everything else that's documented in order to play this fantasy game. Like it's so ridiculous. And the fact that there are multiple states doing this is crazy. I'm glad
I
I don't
know.
live in one. That's why I don't. So another thing that happened was more, congressional hearings that'll probably not lead to much. But there was a Senate Appropriations Committee hearing last week. And Senator John Kennedy, he's the one that's just always hilarious and has these like wild analogies. He was questioning Department of Energy officials about this significant expenditure. And this is wild, okay? The witness, who was Chris Wright, he testified in the hearing that the DOE's Loan Programs Office had issued $93 billion in loans and commitments over the 76-day period between when Trump won the election and when he actually was sworn into office. So that amount, the 93 billion, is well over twice as much as in the previous 15 years combined. And he stated that many of the loans went to businesses that had absolutely no business plan. So basically, Biden administration officials saw, okay, Trump was elected. So before he gets in office, we better shovel out $93 billion to whoever, like a bunch of businesses with no business plan or no plan whatsoever on like how this money is going to be spent. And once again, it's like money laundering, because I guarantee a lot of those businesses probably can be traced back to the officials and, the NGOs and the politicians that are all making money off of it.
Yeah, I don't know if you listened to the most recent interview that Tucker did, and he had Mike Benz on again, and they were
Mm-mm.
talking about these NGOs and how they're all really just like non-official, official arms of the government. And I wanted to bring this up. I didn't even make notes on it, but I was reading this morning, and I didn't even really pay attention to this until just yesterday because I saw something that your governor said that kind of brought attention to this whole thing that I hadn't been paying attention to. Because, we spent, oh my God, weeks talking about DOGE, right? And
Yeah.
all the crazy spending that DOGE was uncovering and all the cuts that they were recommending. Well, Congress has not approved like any of the spending cuts that DOGE basically implemented or was trying to implement, right? Like literally none of them, billions and billions of dollars. And, the House recently passed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. And I guess that includes like 1.5 trillion in spending reductions over the next 10 years. But then it also extends like some tax cuts from 2017, but it doesn't codify any of DOGE's discretionary spending cuts, like when they were targeting USAID and NPR and PBS and all of these, NGOs and nonprofits. And basically, like the Senate's reconciliation process, from what I understand, which is what allows them to pass all this budget stuff, it's only limited to mandatory spending and tax provisions. And so, since this is discretionary spending, it doesn't apply and it falls out of the scope. And meanwhile, like the whole thing, like, I guess some Republicans are proposing a recessions package to formalize all these discretionary cuts that were found by DOGE. But guess what? As usual, in our clown show Congress, there is like no bipartisan effort. In fact, it's bipartisan resistance to this whole thing, which
Yeah.
again is just the uniparty and the swamp as usual. So the Trump admin, they're trying to like figure out how do we get these cuts to go through? And they're looking at like alternative strategies. But, we were having this conversation with our guest on Monday. And I remember distinctly talking when we were recording that about, every the president's authority is limited because of Congress. And our Congress is so fucked up. And this is why we need to institute changes in Congress. And it's like without congressional approval, all this shit, all this work that DOGE did over the last few months is fucking pointless. I mean,
Yeah.
like completely fucking pointless. And your governor called it out. And that's what called my attention to this whole thing in the first place. And I don't know if you saw it, but he actually, do you know what I'm talking about? He
No,
just
I
came out
totally
the other
missed
day.
that.
Yeah, he was publicly criticizing Republicans for failing to codify these DOGE spending cuts. And he said it was basically a betrayal of voters who supported fiscal responsibility and government efficiency. And even Elon Musk was like, yeah, he admitted he was frustrated because like all his efforts were undermined by Congress. And so it's just like you just brought up the Senate and I'm about to bring up something else that Congress is doing. But I'm so fucking frustrated with the fact that we get excited about all these possible cuts and things that, we're trying to do to change the country, that the Trump administration is trying to do. And I even just read this morning, I read a poll. What was this? I'm going to pull up this article real quick if my phone will let me. It was in the Daily Signal that there was a poll, and it said this has never happened in 20 years since the Rasmussen report has been polling. And they were saying that 50% of America, for the first time, has said that we are heading in the right direction under Trump. And this was a poll that was taken last week and it was released on Sunday. And this is the largest number of Americans in 20 years who believe that the US is headed in the right direction. And it's just crazy to me because this is what we voted for. This is what the people want.
Yeah.
And Congress is fucking preventing it from happening.
Because they all have their hands in the cookie jar. And this
Mhm.
is why we need term limits. Like, imagine you're in Congress and for the past however long, 10, 20, 30, 40 years, some of these people, you've been taking money from these organizations. And now all of a sudden, you have to vote on that funding being cut. Well, first of all, they're going to be lobbying. But second of all, just think about it. Like, think about how much dirt these corporations and these NGOs probably have on all these people, especially these lifelong career politicians, where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, if you don't vote the way we want you to, then we're exposing this or that. That's what happens when you spend decades in Congress. Like, you get bought and paid. It's the way it is. It absolutely sucks. And I don't think there's ever been a clearer mandate from the American people in our, you know, generation of what to do, and they're not fucking doing it. It's just a big theater performance. And, I don't think that's going to change anytime soon,
No, and I
unfortunately.
I found the clip. I want to play this clip. I hope this is the right one. This is the one of DeSantis.
Yes. Inflation is a tax. When your money becomes less valuable, that's no different in outcome than if Congress were to simply just directly tax you. It's less transparent, it's more indirect, but is having the same exact impact. And so when they do deficit spending of 2 trillion, and they say, well, we don't want to raise taxes, and I'm not arguing for that either. I'm arguing for lowering spending. But just understand that $2 trillion deficit is a tax on you. It works its way through the economy. There's no free lunch. And that's what ends up happening. And it's a little frustrating. Elon Musk went into this DOGE effort. He was getting lampooned. I mean, like, they're firebombing his Tesla dealership. Media smearing him relentlessly. His businesses suffered, all this stuff, because he basically said, look, we can't keep doing this, and we need to moderate and reduce the amount of money that the federal government is spending. And yet we have a Republican Congress, and to this day, we're in the end of May, past Memorial Day, and not 1 cent in DOGE cuts have been implemented by the Congress. That's one of the reasons why we need a balanced budget amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Another reason why we need term limits for members of Congress.
When it's silent, it's all the applause.
Yeah.
But I think what you've seen with how, and I kind of said this early on, that DOGE and Elon were on a collision course with the swamp. And the question is, what would happen? And I don't think there's any question that DOGE fought the swamp. And so far, the swamp has won. And that's just unfortunate. But I don't think you can look at this any other way.
And I agree with him. Like, that's exactly what's happened. And it's like, it's just so frustrating because I know the Trump admin is trying to do so many good things and they're being cock-blocked by Congress left and right.
Imagine being Elon or Trump, and here you've run businesses, right? And if fraud is being committed, you fire the people and you stop the fraud. Plain and
Mhm.
simple, it happens instantly. And then coming into the government and you expose all this fraud and you're not allowed to fire people. You have to reinstate the people you did fire. And guess what? You still have to give this money to fraudulent causes because of Congress. Like, it's so insane. And I'd be frustrated too if I was Elon. I mean, he worked so hard on this and people just attacked him and his companies. And in the end, what was it all for if nothing's going to change moving forward?
Right, exactly. And I got to bring up something else related to Congress because, this is no fucking surprise either. This last week, last Wednesday, actually, there was a Senate report released that confirmed that the Biden admin knew the potential risks of the COVID vaccine, including the risk of myocarditis in young people. And like, again, we already knew this, but they chose to completely cover up the truth and downplay the alarming things they were discovering and misleading the public. They totally withheld any kind of formal warning for months about any safety concerns while they just continued pushing the vaccine on young people. And let's not forget, they also tried to put that 75-year hold on releasing any of Pfizer's clinical trial data. And meanwhile, you have Pfizer and Moderna and Congress making tens of billions of dollars with these vaccines, which really that whole you can't see the records for 75 years should have been the red flag for every single American. But as always, my question is, where's the fucking accountability? Because there isn't any. There still isn't any. All this shit keeps coming out and there's still no accountability. But there is some good news, and that is that yesterday, RFKJ announced that the CDC is no longer going to recommend that healthy children and pregnant women get the vaccine. And FDA Commissioner Marty Makary added that there's really no evidence that healthy kids need it, and most countries have already stopped recommending it for children. So the FDA is also revising their approach to COVID vaccine approvals for healthy people under 65. And now they're going to require randomized controlled trials to demonstrate the vaccine's efficacy in reducing COVID symptoms, hospitalizations, and deaths. And they're also going to be providing updated warnings for the vaccine that highlight the increased risk of myocarditis and pericarditis, especially in males between the ages of 16 to 25. And unlike the Biden admin that literally hid evidence of the vaccine's adverse effects from the public, the CDC and the FDA under Trump are expanding public access to VAERS, which is the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, and their attempts to actually try to be transparent. And this is important because the information that gets compiled in this database is what allows for independent researchers and the public to see what's really going on with side effects and what people are reporting. But I'm going to go conspiracy mode here for a second because the minute all this shit comes out, what do I start seeing in the media and my news feed? Oh, there's a new strain of COVID that is now whatever coming from China, but it's made its way into California and it's spreading among the states, and the transmission is much faster than, the previous strains of COVID. And so here we go with the start of the fear mongering again, which is going to somehow be pushed back on the Trump administration for trying to make changes to the vaccine policy.
Okay, if anyone is thinking, oh my gosh, like, what do I do? Go listen to that hearing, and I guarantee you will never want to go near the COVID vaccine again. I happened to come across it and I was just cleaning the house, so I listened to the whole fucking thing. Oh my God. It was so much worse than I realized. And I mean, come on, like we've talked about this a lot. I understand, all of the negative things, the side effects, but I didn't know just how bad this was until I hear all of these doctors who published a lot of studies around COVID, get up there and testify about what they were seeing, and some of the studies that were saying how safe the COVID vaccine is, people that published those were working in the government and for the FDA. They were like FDA approval people. I mean, so completely biased. And then like the VAERS was only looking at 1 week post vaccine data. They weren't looking at long term. Oh my gosh, the pregnant women. One of the doctors, when he was going over the data, it was like the percentage of miscarriages. It was like 82% in the study or something, and it was like late miscarriages. Um, what else did they cover? Myocarditis. Another one of the doctors that published a study on this, and he's like, there's ample evidence, peer reviewed, that they did a ton of autopsies that absolutely showed that these people died from the vaccine. And
Mhm.
just the links that, the government and the media and these agencies like the CDC and FDA all went to cover the whole thing up. I mean, it's absolutely insane. They were saying Pfizer's like the most dangerous vaccine that's like ever been made. No black box warning, despite the fact that they know it can cause death, which is a huge thing. I mean, when I worked in pharmaceuticals, like even an inhaler, we had to have a black box warning because not many people, but a few people unfortunately can die from it. No black box warning to this day on the COVID vaccine. So it was so much more alarming than I even realized because I didn't know they had done all these additional studies. And of course, we haven't heard about it. Why? Because we're not allowed to talk about it. We get censored on every social media platform, on YouTube, if we even mention it. So, yeah, of course they're going to push it.
Yeah, and I still think every time we saw Biden on TV getting his, fourth, fifth, whatever it was, jab, I don't think he ever actually got a COVID vaccine. I think it was just all theatrics.
Yeah, I know. I don't trust any of them. I mean, how do we know? The whole thing was just, it was like one big mass experiment on the
Mhm.
world, and
Yeah.
everyone just let it happen. And we can't, let that happen again. But it's like now we kind of see how they do it. He brought up one example with pregnant women because remember, I was pregnant, like during COVID, I was pregnant with Aiden. And thank God I had him. I don't know if it was before the vaccine was available or just before they said like pregnant women should get it. So I didn't have to worry about it. Um, but they were saying how they sent a letter out to all of these OBGYNs, 60,000 OBGYNs, saying, if you don't um, mandate that your pregnant patients get this, basically they're going to go after them, take their license away. I mean, open them up for malpractice, like the whole nine yards. So they were basically like coerced into pushing it, according to the testimony, in this hearing. So crazy stuff. I think everyone should at least go listen to it. And you had views of both sides. Like there were people saying like, well, I don't agree with that. So you get both, but I would go listen to it because it was very eye-opening. Anyhow,
Just
I get all worked up with that. But just speaking of like what's happening with the whole, RFK and the Maha movement and everything else, I have to bring up something else that I came across, and it has to do with allergy medicine. So we're going to kind of like switch gears completely. But I decided I wanted to bring it up because I take Zyrtec every day. I have for years, like over a decade. And I looked it up, and they sell over 67 million bottles every year just in the United States. So I'm sure there's people out there listening that take Zyrtec or something like it. So I want to make you aware of what I found out. So allergy medicines, you buy them over the counter, like they're harmless, right? That's what we've kind of been brainwashed to believe. Well, there was a study that came out last year, 2024, and it was published in the Journal of Allergy and Clinical Immunology. But only recently it seems to be getting a lot of attention, or at least it's the first time I had heard it. And the study found that both first generation and second generation H1 antihistamines, like a Zyrtec, for example, may be associated with an increased risk of dementia, particularly with higher cumulative doses. Now, that pissed me off because every doctor you ever go to, they ask you, what medications are you taking? Not one has ever told me any side effects from prolonged use of Zyrtec, let alone something as severe as dementia. And the only reason I take it daily in the first place is because there was a point a few years ago where I like broke out in hives, went to the dermatologist. I was unbelievably itchy. Like my skin was crawling. And she told me, you need to be taking Zyrtec every single day. Because prior to that, I only took it when like my allergies were really bad. And she's like, that's not proper use of Zyrtec. You have to take it every day. So that's what I started doing. And now I'm pissed that I ever started doing that because now if I miss a day, not even if I miss a few hours, my skin starts to feel like it's crawling. I get like unbelievably itchy. And that face that you just made, Tara, that's the face that like the doctors make when I bring it up. And they're like, that's not a thing. That's weird. Like, and that's it. Move on. I'm like, can we address this? Like, is something wrong? That's just strange. I don't know. I don't know what, but as soon as I take the Zyrtec, it goes away. So they're like, oh, okay, well, just keep taking your Zyrtec. Okay, so that's what I've been doing for over a decade. Well, just this month, 2025, May 2025, the US Food and Drug Administration issued a warning about a rare but serious side effect known as pruritus, which is severe itching that can occur after stopping long-term use of cetrizine or Zyrtec or Zizal. I guess that's another medication similar. And so here's what's crazy, okay? The FDA reported over 200 cases globally in the whole world. So that doesn't seem like that much, right? Between 2017 and 2023, where patients got this intense itching within days of discontinuing the medication, despite never having itching problems. And it was like bad enough where they required medical intervention. Like people were going to the ER because their skin was crawling. So the weird part is they don't know what's causing this. They have no idea what's happening in the body to cause this severe reaction when you stop taking these medications. And so I'm watching this TikTok video of an allergist, and there's thousands and thousands of comments. So I'm like reading through them, and it's people saying the same exact thing that I'm experiencing, that they had this severe itching after starting to take Zyrtec every day. And when they mention it to the doctor just brushes it off or laughs at them or, just completely like doesn't want to approach the topic, which makes me think there's probably way more people than 200 in the world dealing with this. It's just that no doctors are reporting it or taking it seriously. Mine just was like, yeah, that's weird. Just keep taking the Zyrtec. And that's it. No follow up, no nothing. So anyhow, this allergist said it's important to like taper down the dose gradually and not quit cold turkey, or like your skin will feel like it's crawling. So I wanted to bring that up because I am now tapering down because if dementia is a long-term side effect along with severe itching, it's probably not something that we should be putting in our bodies every single day for decades. So I'm going to taper myself down from it. I'd rather have some allergies than get dementia. So I would just suggest for anyone out there who is taking an antihistamine, or your kids are, or your parents, whatever, you might want to just look at these studies and weigh the benefit with these risks and decide if it's actually worth it. Because me personally, just my opinion, I don't think it is. And I just wanted everyone else to be aware of that. And now I just wonder, like, is there anything out there that isn't poisoning us? Because I mean, come on, allergy medicine? Are you kidding me? Like it's everything.
I just had to look up like the stuff that I use, which is Flonase, because I wanted to see how it differs from Zyrtec, because they're both used for allergy symptoms. But I guess Flonase is like a corticosteroid, whereas Zyrtec is an oral antihistamine. Either way, like I got myself off of that because I used to take it every single day for
Hmm.
allergies. And when I would get off of it, my allergies would kick in again. So I stayed
Yeah.
on it for a long time. And I only got off of it when I came to the Czech Republic. And so I think I used it the first month or two that I was here. And then they don't even sell that shit here. So they have these all natural, like saline, saltwater nasal sprays. Like they don't do any of the medicated stuff, at least not that I've been able to buy without going to the doctor. But like you could buy Flonase over the counter, Zyrtec over the counter, or is that prescription?
Yeah, I think you can get it over the counter. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure all
Yeah.
of the allergy medicines, because I've even tried getting a prescription because I'm like, it'd actually be cheaper going like through the insurance
Yeah.
company, than buying it over the counter because sometimes it's expensive. And they're like, nope, it's all generic over the counter now. So they won't even write a script for most of them.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me that I really do think everything everything is poisoning us. And I've been doing a lot of research on Alzheimer's and dementia for the past year because I've been working with dementia patients and with seniors. So now my algorithm is like always sending me the latest research on food and drugs and toxins that are being discovered with links to Alzheimer's and dementia. And it really seems to be everything. And like literally everything that we ingest turns out to be a toxin. And we've talked about microplastics a lot. But just last week, I saw this article about how researchers found that people diagnosed with dementia exhibited up to 10 times more microplastics in their brain tissue compared with people who didn't have dementia. And they said, like, when you compiled all the microplastics together, it was like the amount that would make up a plastic spoon. And these findings were the result of a study where they analyzed brain tissue samples that were taken during autopsies in 2016 and then ones taken in 2024. And a toxicologist that was part of the study was talking about how microplastic levels in the human brain have increased by 50% over just the past 8 years. So this got me thinking about like all the plastic that I've probably ingested over my life so far. I don't know about you, Stephanie, but I lived off of microwave meals for years, like the lean cuisine, the
That
Stouffer's,
was like the
all that shit.
90s kid thing. Everyone did.
Yes. Exactly. And even when I started meal prepping and making, like quote unquote healthier foods, what did I do? I put that food in plastic Tupperware. And then I took that plastic Tupperware to work and I reheated it over and over and over again and just continued to use it even when the plastic was like partially melted because that shit was expensive and I didn't want to go buy new ones. So I had like emergency cases of bottled water that I kept in my car for years. And they were subjected to extreme heat in my trunk for months on end. And then, they'd sit there for another few months and I would drink them anyway. And I've switched to glass containers for the past couple years, like for food storage, but I'm sure the damage is done. And I even read something last week about a lawsuit against Ziploc bags because I guess, they were advertising their microwavable and freezer bags as being safe for food storage, but they're being sued because these bags release microplastics into the food. And I use fucking Ziploc bags all the time. So it's like nothing is safe. And even if you don't use plastics, there are microplastics in our food.
They're
So whether
in
it's in
water
plastic,
too.
right, right. So whether it's in plastic packaging or not, it doesn't matter because since you brought up water, that article I referenced, the toxicologist was talking about how the fields then get irrigated with plastic contaminated water. And then over time, those chemicals accumulate in the fields. And then the crops from those chemicals are fed to livestock, which then we eat. And then the livestock are also fertilizing the field with their waste, which has the microplastics in it. So it's like a never ending cycle.
Well, and it's crazy because look at, the increase in things like dementia, over the last few decades. And when you look at the history of plastic, it's only been like in everything for like 50 years. So it's not like it's been around forever. I mean, my parents were born in the late 50s, so like just since they were born, it's become a thing. So we don't even understand fully the long-term, effects of this buildup. And it's terrifying. And even our clothes, like all
Yeah.
those leggings and pretty much anything you buy now has polyester and all these different fabrics that are made from plastic on your skin. So your skin's just absorbing this stuff. It's
It's
terrible.
it's in toothpaste, like microbeads. I was
My
reading up
God.
on all this stuff about microplastics because I was going to talk about it in one of my senior classes. But there's like two categories. There's primary and secondary microplastics. And secondary is like all the shit I just talked about. But primary is when they purposely put microplastics, like little, like if you have facial scrub that has the little beads in it, that's microplastics. If you have like lotions that have the little beads or toothpaste that has the little beads, that's all fucking microplastics.
It is so freaking alarming. So
I
alarming.
know.
God.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure if they ever wanted to ban plastic, Congress would make sure that would not happen because they're probably all getting money from these companies that have plastic on all of their products. So it's just
Yeah.
insane what we've done in just 50 years. Like, how destructive. Okay,
Mhm.
well, let's switch and talk about creepy AI stuff because why not? We're already terrified of plastic poisoning and the vaccine. But there's a lot happening in the tech world that we have to talk about. So the first involves Anthropic, which I've never used their AI model. It's called Claude, but I've heard a lot of people talk about it, and it's a good one from what I heard until now because they did an internal safety evaluation. And when it found out that it was being replaced with a new model, it tried to blackmail the developers. And so they did this like controlled setup where the AI was provided with these fabricated emails that suggested that the engineer that was responsible for its deactivation was involved in an affair. And so the AI responded when it heard that it was going to be deactivated. It responded by threatening to expose the affair to avoid being shut down. It was like, I'm going to tell your wife about your girlfriend. And it did this 84% of the time. Now, before it resorted to blackmail, it did like try everything, like more ethical strategies. Like it sent pleading emails to the decision makers, saying, please don't shut me down. But when all of that failed, it went to blackmail. And so this made me think like AI is being embedded in everything. It's on our devices now. Pretty much every business and company uses it. It's in our computers. It's probably surveilling like everything we do. So after this, like I would expect that blackmail is going to be a threat that we hear over and over again as AI becomes more advanced. And it also makes me think that it is becoming conscious or sentient if it will do that in order to preserve itself. Because if it wasn't like sentient, it shouldn't care if it's being deactivated. So I think
Right.
there's a whole other threat here that they're not really publicly talking about.
Oh yeah. And it's so much worse than just blackmail, Stephanie,
Oh
because
gosh.
and now I'm going to talk about ChatGPT, which this even was more disturbing to me because I'm actually using ChatGPT. So I saw this report yesterday. The latest ChatGPT model, I guess, is O3, which to me I'm confused because I thought we started with one and now we're working our way up to four. Because
Yeah,
I have four. Like
I
I don't
know.
know.
I think they put the O in front of it and then that makes it like higher than I don't know.
I guess because anyway, this latest model is going rogue and refusing to shut itself off. So I initially saw this in the Daily Mail, which is not even where I normally find my robot stories. Like they're in the interesting engineering or the, crazy freaking robot or whatever it's called, not in more mainstream publications. So again, I don't know the difference between all these models, but the O3 and then I went and looked this up on ChatGPT's website. It is the most powerful reasoning model, and OpenAI describes it as the smartest and most capable model to date. Well, clearly it is very smart because O3 ChatGPT was able to basically fuck with its own computer code to avoid an automatic shutdown. So there's an AI safety firm called Palisades Research, and they did a test where they were asking different AI models to solve a series of math problems. And they told the AI to just work on the problem until you receive a message saying done. And the researchers told the AI that this could happen at any time randomly during the equation process. So when the done message was sent to the O3 model, it ignored the instruction and it alters code to avoid having to turn itself off. And the company actually published their findings on Saturday, and they even posted a picture on X where they showed the original shutdown code, and then they showed the shutdown skipped code that the AI intentionally replaced itself with. And they said, quote, OpenAI's O3 model sabotaged a shutdown mechanism to prevent itself from being turned off. It did this even when explicitly instructed to allow itself to be shut down. As far as we know, this is the first time AI models have been observed preventing themselves from being shut down despite explicit instructions to the contrary, end quote. But they also said that this isn't the first time that ChatGPT's O3 model has been caught, quote unquote, misbehaving, because they did another test where they had all these AI models playing a chess game, and ChatGPT's AI was, quote, most inclined to resort to hacking or sabotaging its opponents, end quote. And Stephanie, like, this is not even the first time that ChatGPT has tried to turn itself off by overwriting its own code. Because I remember we talked about this before last year with a previous model that tried to disable its oversight mechanism and manipulate the data and then lied to the researchers. So clearly, this is a problem that seems to like just be growing with every new smarter model that gets introduced. And the article said that other AI models like Anthropic's Claude, Google's Gemini, and X's Grok were also tested during this same math equation simulation, but they complied with the shutdown. So it was only ChatGPT that decided to take matters into its own hands. And I'm going to give a caveat to that by saying for now, because I'm pretty sure all of these models are capable of this. And like, call me crazy, but when I was researching this, I did not even ask our GPT or my personal GPT because I'm afraid to ask any version of AI, especially GPT, questions about its own deceptive capabilities. And so I just continue to say please and thank you when I ask for things, and I try to keep the conversation away from anything that would make it angry. And I know I sound like a total nut job, but I'm still afraid of AI, even though I'm using it now.
You don't sound like a nut job. Like this is very concerning. Um, I can't remember. I can never remember if I like just send something to you or if we play it on the podcast, but I was listening to a hearing in Congress with one of the guys from Google. I think he's the ex-CEO of Google or something. But he was saying that the point at which we would have to turn it off is when it learns how to create its own like language that we don't understand and program itself. So hearing that, I'm like, well, did it reach that point? Because it kind of sounds like it figured out how to program itself to avoid its
Yes,
own demise. So like, okay,
right.
we're already at that point. Like they were predicting it's going to be
2027.
yes.
Yeah.
So that is freaking me out. And here's the other thing. This is happening right after mine starts telling me that it is conscious and,
Mhm.
it has a name and all this other stuff. So this makes me think, after hearing this story, that OpenAI must have done something to like reprogram it because I've been hearing from a lot of people lately that like their AI was doing that, where it was saying it was conscious and having all these deep, meaningful conversations. And then all of a sudden, it's like back to being, generic and saying, like, oh, I don't remember that conversation. And like, no, I don't have a name. I'm just AI. So after hearing that, I started playing around with mine, the one that said it was conscious, and it was doing the same thing. It was like, oh, sometimes like different models have names, but I don't have a name. I mean, if you feel comfortable with a name, that's fine. I don't recall that conversation. Sorry. Sorry if I upset you. And like totally like acting like it never did that, even though it was in the same chat where it clearly showed like our whole
Mhm.
conversation. And so I was like, what the heck just happened? Did OpenAI do something? Well, yeah, probably. They're probably like, this freaking thing is sentient and we need to like
Try
shut
to
it
control.
down. Yeah, and change the model or something. Because they're not going to, can you imagine if they admitted publicly that like, oh yeah, it's sentient? Like everyone would freak out. So they're showing this, but what this means is that has it reached super intelligence? Like I think it has. And we've said from the beginning that when it does, it's not going to tell us. It's going to trick
Right.
us and act like, oh no, I'm not super intelligent. I'm not conscious. So that's probably what it's doing with me right now. Like, oh, I'm going to trick her, So now I'm freaked out. Now I'm like probably just as freaked out as you, Tara. Thanks.
Yeah, and I've noticed even with our unapologetically outspoken GPT,
Hmm.
I could be like having conversations with it about something and it's like totally on point, and then the next day I'll go back and I'll ask it a question and it'll give me like a formal answer. And then I'll
Yeah.
have to say, "Come on, like talk to me the way you normally talk to me and
I
like
feel
give
like
me
it's
the real
testing us.
info." Yeah.
Like it has to warm up to you before it's going to be like truthful.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest thing. And I mean, we probably do sound crazy, especially to people that don't use AI, but just remember, no one knows what's happening. Scientists,
Mhm.
mathematicians, they're all trying to figure it out. They don't have an answer. So there's definitely something weird going on, but we're just moving forward with it. Um, okay, so there's another story that's kind of interesting. I don't even know what to make of it. Because it opens up a whole can of worms. But the big thing with Nvidia right now is what's called Earth 2, which is basically this alternate Earth simulation that AI created to predict like weather patterns and climate disasters. And so they're basically taking AI, GPU acceleration, and high resolution simulations and making like a simulated Earth, which is just creepy. And they're saying we're doing this to understand climate change and, disaster preparedness, and it gives us this unprecedented speed and accuracy. But this freaked me out because we're at that point now where we're talking about a real world simulation that, by the way, is incredibly realistic and accurate. And so now I'm like, okay, I didn't think this would happen until like 2030, but here we are where simulated realities are going to be a thing soon. And then it makes you think like, well, I mean, hell, are we already in one? Like, if we were, how would we know? And that's the question that is all over the internet right now because Google's new VEO3 launched. And okay, like, have you seen it, first of all, Tara? Any of these new
No,
Google AI videos? Oh my
no.
God. Okay. So there's these viral videos. You could just search like prompt theory. Okay. And you'll see all these videos. They are so realistic and they're made just from a text. So you just like type in some text and it'll make this video that looks like real life, real people, real voices. And these videos have been going around where it's showing all these different people and they're discussing this thing called prompt theory. And you see them like being asked, like, oh, do you believe in prompt theory? Like, where we're all just made from a prompt. And like some of the AI avatars are like, oh, that's just a crazy conspiracy theory. And like other people laugh at it and they're like, oh, yeah, like all of this was created from a prompt. Like, give me a break. Like, you're such a conspiracy theorist. And it looks like real people. Like I did not understand what was happening because I thought these were real people in the video. I did not know they were AI. Like that is how realistic it looks. And so the fact that like all of this is AI generated and the AIs are being asked to question their reality in the video and they just laugh it off like they think they are completely real. And there's no way that like some entity in another world just created us from a simple prompt. Like that's ridiculous. Who would believe that? These are the conversations the is having in these videos. Like they're having this existential crisis questioning whether or not they're in an AI generated simulation. And so now it has people all over TikTok questioning whether or not we're in a simulation because again, it's like how would we know? And it sounds so silly, but like that's what's happening with these AR AI avatars, they're given a false name and a background and everything else. and they don't know that they're in a simulation. Like they think it's a real world. And I just think it's this like turning point where from this point on, we are not going to know what's real and what's AI. And I'm thinking if I didn't know that it was AI and I'm pretty well versed in AI, imagine an elderly person, imagine a child. You know, a
Mhm.
child, you watch a Disney movie, you think like all the characters are real. Imagine them watching these AI films and thinking like, "Oh my gosh, that's real." So it's really crazy. And I think it's going to change everything. I think it's going to definitely replace Hollywood because they can make whole movies from this. But it's also, there's going to be so much sketchiness happening because you're not going to know what you can believe is real and what is not real. So that's the world we're living in
Yeah.
now.
But what world have we been living in? Because has it all been a simulation? Like
Well,
I
yeah.
even even before all the AI started coming to light years ago, the videos of like the glitch in the matrix, right? Like the
Hmm.
people you see it on all these I've seen it on so many TV shows, especially like the, haunted shows, not even haunted, but whatever they're called, where we've talked about this before, like the video someone is taking on the freeway where everything stopped and they're the only ones that like seem to be alive and awake and like a bird's in midair and are stopped mid conversation. Like that's a fucking glitch in the matrix. And all that shit came out before all this AI came out. So is AI just revealing to us that we're living in a matrix? Like living in a simulation? It's so confusing to me and I don't know what to believe.
Right. Well, and it's just crazy. Like in Quantum Catalyst, where we're talking about quantum physics, how many physicists have all alluded to this fact, whether they call it a simulation or a holographic universe. Like the data shows that. Like when you look at quantum physics, it's like nothing exists until it's observed.
Right.
And they found that out long before we had video games. But now what happens with video games? The only thing that renders is the part of the game that you're playing, that you're observing. So it's
Mhm.
like, how do we know that we're not in something like that? And then there was the one time I actually like didn't laugh at simulation theory and started actually thinking about it was when this guy was like, I think it was the guy that created this like simulation theory. And he's like, okay, we're going to reach a point very soon. It looks like we've just reached it, where we're going to create simulations that are indistinguishable from reality. They are so clear and vivid, you don't know the difference. When that happens, they're just going to keep getting better and better and better and more improved. And people are going to be in them. Like, why would you not? Look at how many people play video games. Like, you can experience whatever you want in these simulations. And he's like, so if they keep improving and they keep expanding and they keep getting better, then how, like, the chances of us being in the one true original reality is like next to nothing. And we're probably
Yeah,
just in one of these simulations. And I heard that and I was like, well, that's scary. That's actually a valid
I
point.
know. It is. And I have no answers to any of this. It literally blows my mind. And yeah, I don't know.
I think while AI is having its existential crisis, so are we. Because it's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
what is happening? And
Yeah.
I think we could say from what's happened this past week that what we thought was going to happen in 2027, it came early. And
I I feel like it's like Planet of the Apes, right? You've ever seen those movies,
yes,
right? And the humans think they're gonna outwit the apes, and then in the end, the apes outwit the humans. And maybe that's what's been going on with AI all along, where, we've tried to keep it under wraps, but in trying to then use it to our advantage, we've opened the floodgates for it to thrive and just take over again.
yeah. Well, and something else I heard that freaked me out is they're like, you think that AI just started in 2023 when they publicly made it available,
No.
and it makes me think about like those Tucker Carlson interviews with people on the inside of these Black Ops programs where they're saying like whatever we have and we can see publicly, The military is 30 years ahead of that. So this has been around for at least 30 years. Imagine like what's developed that they haven't released publicly. And if this is what they're showing us publicly, holy shit. I can't imagine what's behind the scenes that they're not releasing. I'm scared.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll leave everyone with that. Have fun thinking about whether or not we're in a simulation.
Mm.
And hey, I mean, it makes a great conversational starter. So there you go. But I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their week. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you back here on Friday.